The star fell on a moonless night, streaking across the heavens like a tear from the gods. It crashed into the heart of the Whispering Woods, a place where shadows danced and the air hummed with ancient secrets. The villagers of Eldermere, who lived on the edge of the forest, saw the light and heard the thunderous impact. But none dared to investigate. The woods were forbidden, cursed by tales of lost souls and vengeful spirits. All except for Kael. Kael was a wanderer, a man with no family, no home, and no fear. He had spent his life defying the odds, surviving where others perished. When the star fell, he felt a pull in his chest, a strange magnetic force that drew him toward the forest. He ignored the warnings of the villagers, their trembling voices and wide eyes. He had nothing to lose and everything to gain. The journey through the Whispering Woods was treacherous. The trees seemed to close in around him, their gnarled branches clawing at his skin. The air grew colder with each step, and the whispers. Oh, the whispers were maddening. They spoke in languages he didn't understand, voices overlapping, some pleading, others mocking. But Kael pressed on, driven by the strange pull in his chest. When he finally reached the crater, he found the star. It was not what he expected. Instead of a blazing celestial rock, he found a small, dull stone no larger than his fist. It lay in the center of the crater, surrounded by scorched earth and shattered trees. The surface of the stone was smooth, almost glass-like, but it emitted no light, no heat. It was cold and lifeless, as if its fall had drained it of all its power. Kael picked it up, turning it over in his hands. He felt nothing. No surge of energy, no divine revelation. Just the weight of disappointment. He had risked his life for this. A worthless rock. But as he turned to leave, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They swirled around him, a cacophony of voices that made his head spin. And then one voice rose above the rest, clear and commanding. "Take it to the Barterer." Kael froze. The voice was not in his ears but in his mind, echoing as if it had always been there. He looked around, but the forest was empty, save for the shadows. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice trembling despite himself. "The Barterer will give you what you seek," the voice replied. "But beware, the price is steep." Kael hesitated. He had heard tales of the Barterer, a mysterious figure who traded in the impossible. But the stories always ended in tragedy. Those who sought the Barterer's favor rarely returned, and those who did were never the same. Still he had come this far. And the star, though seemingly worthless, had called to him for a reason. He tucked it into his satchel and set off toward the Barterer's lair. The Barterer's lair was a crumbling tower at the edge of the world, where the sea met the sky. The journey took weeks, and by the time Kael arrived, he was exhausted, his body battered and his spirit worn. But the pull in his chest had not faded. If anything, it had grown stronger. The tower was ancient, its stones weathered by centuries of wind and rain. The door was a massive slab of black iron, etched with runes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Kael pushed it open, the hinges groaning in protest. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of incense and decay. The walls were lined with shelves, each one crammed with strange artifacts. Jars filled with swirling mist, weapons that hummed with power, books bound in leather that seemed to breathe. At the center of the room stood the Barterer. The Barterer was neither man nor woman, but something in between. Their skin was pale as moonlight, their eyes like twin voids. They wore a robe of shifting colors, patterns that seemed to dance and writhe as Kael watched. "You have something for me," the Barterer said, their voice a melody that sent shivers down Kael's spine. Kael nodded, pulling the star from his satchel. He held it out, his hand trembling. The Barterer's eyes gleamed as they took the stone, their long fingers brushing against Kael's palm. "A fallen star," they murmured. "Rare but not without precedent. And yet, this one is different." Kael frowned. "Different how?" The Barterer smiled, a cold, calculating expression. "This star was not meant to fall. It was cast down, banished by the heavens. It carries a curse, a weight that no mortal should bear." Kael's heart sank. "Then it's worthless." "Not worthless," the Barterer corrected, "but dangerous. To you it is a burden. To me it is intriguing." Kael swallowed. "What will you give me for it?" The Barterer's smile widened. "What do you desire?" Kael hesitated. He had spent his life searching for something. Purpose, meaning, a place to belong. But now, faced with the question, he found himself unsure. "I want power," he said at last. "The power to change my fate." The Barterer's eyes gleamed. "A noble desire. But power comes at a price. Are you willing to pay it?" Kael nodded, though a part of him screamed to run, to leave the tower and never look back. "I am." The Barterer extended their hand, and Kael took it. The moment their skin touched, a searing pain shot through his body, as if his very soul were being torn apart. He screamed, but no sound came out. The world around him dissolved into darkness, and he felt himself falling. When Kael awoke, he was alone. The tower was gone, and he stood on a barren plain, the sky above him a swirling mass of stars. The star, his star, was gone. In its place was a mark on his chest, a sigil that pulsed with a faint, otherworldly light. He felt different, stronger, faster, as if the very fabric of reality bent to his will. But there was a hollowness inside him, a void that no amount of power could fill. The Barterer's voice echoed in his mind. "You have what you sought. But remember, mortal, fate is not so easily defied." Kael clenched his fists, the sigil on his chest glowing brighter. He didn't care about the price. He had power now, and he would use it to carve his own path, to defy the gods themselves if he had to. But as he walked away from the plain, the whispers returned, louder than ever. They spoke of betrayal, of a destiny he could not escape. And deep down he knew the truth. The Barterer had not given him power. They had given him a curse. The fallen star had been worthless, but it had also been a warning. And Kael, in his hubris, had ignored it. Now he would pay the price. Years passed, and Kael's name became legend. He was a king, a conqueror, a man who defied fate itself. But the whispers never left him. They grew louder with each victory, each life he took. And the sigil on his chest, once faint, now burned with a light that could not be extinguished. In the end, it was not an enemy's blade that brought him down, but the weight of his own choices. The Barterer's curse consumed him, and he vanished into the shadows, a fallen star in his own right. The villagers of Eldermere still tell his story, a cautionary tale of ambition and hubris. And in the whispering woods, the crater remains, a reminder of the star that fell, and the mortal who dared to defy fate.